On September 25, 2025, a major push began in Donbas. North Korea, working with Russian command, moved 87 tanks across the border, which included T-62s, T-72s, and infantry carriers under drone guidance. Those deadly weapons were meant to break Ukraine's defensive line before daylight. However, Ukraine knew what was coming, and they were already working with British and French intelligence teams. So, when the column entered the valley, Ukrainian artillery and drones could react almost instantly. And then came something unexpected: a fully autonomous system that wiped out an entire armored force in less than an hour. What technology did Ukraine use? And how did it manage to end the assault so quickly? At 3:12 a.m., satellite feeds confirmed what Ukrainian analysts had been tracking for hours. Those Korean tanks had been secretly transported through Russian territory and redeployed into eastern Ukraine. Under the cover of darkness, the formation crossed the border and entered the Donbas region in 3 staggered lines. The operation was conducted with Russian coordination from start to finish. Artillery spotters relayed bearings through encrypted channels, while Orlan 10 drones circled above, feeding live imagery into command posts across the border. The convoy pushed south along narrow rural roads, its headlights dimmed to avoid detection. From the sky, it looked routine, a reinforcement mission meant to stiffen Russia's defenses before winter. On the ground, something felt wrong. Every village the column passed through was dark. Homes were shuttered, and livestock pens were empty, and windows were boarded. No civilians moved along the streets. The crews inside the tanks noticed the silence, but pressed forward, confident in their orders. At the front were the T-62 and T-72 tanks, old but battle-tested machines, upgraded with thermal sights and reactive armor. Behind them rolled BTR-80 personnel carriers and BMP-2 infantry vehicles, carrying support troops and ammunition. Engines rumbled through the frozen air as exhaust trails hung low over the valley. What neither the Russian nor the North Korean commanders knew was that the valley ahead had been transformed into a trap. For weeks, Ukrainian engineers had been preparing it in coordination with British and French intelligence. Reconnaissance drones mapped every contour and curve of the terrain. Special operations teams marked choke points, calibrated distances, and transmitted coordinates directly into Ukraine's digital fire control network. Allied satellites tracked the convoy's progress in real time, triangulating every vehicle's position within seconds. The deeper the column moved, the tighter the trap became. Mine belts had been layered across all possible routes of advance and retreat. Each lane was seeded with anti-tank charges, PG-7 VL warheads, and 150mm artillery shells wired to pressure fuses. Overlapping kill zones had been plotted for Ukrainian artillery, positioned on the surrounding ridges. By 3:21 a.m., the lead T-62 in the central line reached a small bridge at the valley's midpoint. As it crossed, a buried mine detonated. The explosion hurled the 82,000-pound tank onto its side and tore its tracks apart. Flames lit the night sky. Seconds later, a BTR-80 just behind it triggered another blast, scattering debris and personnel across the frozen road. Chaos erupted over the radio. Tank commanders shouted for positions, while crews fought to turn their machines around. Engines roared, tracks spun, and several vehicles struck more mines as they tried to escape the impact zone. Explosions went off in quick succession, each one closer than the last. Flames rose along the route, lighting up the frozen ground and revealing wrecked armor scattered across the valley. From higher ground, Ukrainian observers could now see the entire column breaking apart. They marked each target calmly, relaying adjustments to fire control units positioned farther east. Artillery crews checked ranges one final time and waited for the order. British AS-90 howitzers and French Caesar self-propelled guns had their firing data loaded and waiting for clearance. Ukrainian commanders monitored the live feed from overhead drones, watching the enemy column grind to a halt inside the mine corridor. Every movement inside the valley was now visible, and within minutes, the stage was set for the next phase. Precision fire. At 3:27 a.m., a single command went through the encrypted network. Fire! The British and French guns opened simultaneously. Shells screamed across 18 miles of airspace and landed with unerring accuracy. Command vehicles and fuel trucks were hit first, followed by the recovery units and forward observers. The shockwaves tore through the valley floor, scattering steel fragments hundreds of feet in every direction. Amid the barrage, Ukrainian drone operators guided FPV units toward surviving armor. Each drone carried a small thermobaric charge designed to pierce engine blocks and ignite ammunition racks. The night sky filled with brief flashes as drones dove into their targets one after another. By 3:30 a.m., the convoy's advance had completely collapsed. 60% of the vehicles were burning, and the rest were immobilized or trapped behind wreckage. Radio networks dissolved into static as British and French electronic warfare teams jammed all frequencies. The enemy column, once a symbol of renewed offensive strength, was now blind, deaf, and pinned in place. What began as a coordinated breakthrough had turned into a disaster within 18 minutes. Yet, the night's most decisive weapon had not even revealed itself. That would come next. At 3:33 a.m., the shelling stopped. For the first time in 20 minutes, silence hung over the valley. Smoke drifted low across the wreckage, and the glow of burning fuel lit the ridgelines. Crews who had survived the first barrage tried to regroup, shouting into dead radios. A few tanks still had power. Engines started, tracks clanked, and a handful of vehicles began to move. The counterattack had begun. It was not planned, just desperate. The remaining T-72s fired blindly into the hills, trying to suppress whatever was hitting them. Machine gun tracers cut through the smoke, but found nothing. Ukrainian infantry had already repositioned, waiting behind tree lines with NLAWS and javelins. When the first tank reached open ground, a missile streaked down from the ridge. The impact blew through the turret and set off its ammunition. The explosion knocked out two vehicles nearby. Another missile hit a BMP-2 trying to turn around, flipping it into a ditch. Panic spread again. The narrow valley offered no cover, only wrecks. Tanks tried to push forward through the debris, but their tracks jammed on twisted steel. Others turned off the road and sank into half-frozen soil. From above, it looked like a field of dying engines. Then came the drones. Those were small FPVs, flying low and fast, that skimmed the smoke. Operators locked onto heat signatures and sent them straight into engine decks. Each hit was precise, and each detonation final. By 3:40 a.m., any hope of regrouping was gone. The convoy was broken, scattered between flames and wreckage. British and French observers confirmed over 60 vehicles destroyed or disabled. Ukrainian gunners shifted to shorter ranges to finish whatever still moved. Within minutes, the valley fell silent again, this time for good. What had started as a bold joint offensive ended as a static line of wrecked armor, and above that silence, a new signature appeared on drone feeds, something fast, low, and unlike anything seen before. Ukraine's secret system was finally in play. The first reports came from a British reconnaissance satellite. At 3:42 a.m., it detected multiple fast-moving signatures sweeping across the valley from the west. Those were too small for aircraft, but too precise for artillery. Seconds later, Ukrainian drone operators confirmed visual contact. They weren't conventional drones or loitering munitions. In actuality, these were autonomous hunter platforms, an experimental system Ukraine had kept off the radar for months. Each unit operated independently, guided through encrypted networks that combined local sensors with NATO satellite data. They could operate without human piloting. Only mission parameters were enough. Identify armor, neutralize, repeat. Those powerful machines moved silently through the smoke. Using thermal imaging, they locked onto the remaining heat signatures inside the valley. Mostly disabled tanks with crews still inside or attempting repairs. The system selected targets automatically and attacked in sequence. One of the surviving T-72s became the first confirmed kill. The autonomous drone dropped a shaped charge directly onto its turret ring, punching through armor and setting off stored ammunition. The detonation ripped through the hull, and within seconds, the tank's heat signature literally vanished from the feed. French Special Forces teams monitoring the live stream called it machine precision. As the system continued its run, Ukrainian artillery switched to a support role, hitting outer escape routes and suppressing any potential reinforcements. The coordination was seamless, humans directing the broad picture, while the autonomous system handled the execution. By 3:48 a.m., there were no active engines left inside the valley. Thermal feeds showed only cooling wrecks and isolated flashes from secondary ammunition fires. The operation moved into its final phase. Ukrainian infantry advanced under drone overwatch, clearing the valley meter by meter. British and French surveillance confirmed no surviving armored units within the grid. What stunned analysts later wasn't just the scale of the destruction, but the timing. From the first detonation to total neutralization, the entire engagement had lasted 49 minutes. 87 vehicles, most of them tanks, were either destroyed or rendered useless. The autonomous system, its full name still classified, had turned a multi-day offense into a one-hour defeat. It wasn't a large weapon, nor was it nuclear or even hypersonic. It was all about speed, data, and precision fused into one network. That night, Ukraine demonstrated that technology could fight alongside soldiers and change the balance of the battlefield. And somewhere between the smoke and silence of that valley, the future of modern warfare was already being written. At 3:55 a.m., sensors picked up new movement to the north. A small cluster of surviving tanks and troop carriers had regrouped beyond the blast zone. They were the remnants of the second column, units that had halted before entering the valley when the first explosions began. Realizing retreat was impossible, their commanders issued a single order: advance. It was a desperate attempt to break through Ukrainian lines and rejoin Russian formations to the east. Engines roared fiercely as the surviving T-72s and BMP-2s pushed forward through the smoke. They fired blindly into the ridges, trying to suppress anything that looked like a firing position. Tracers flashed through the haze, cutting through the quiet that had followed the bombardment. Ukrainian infantry, already repositioned along the flanks, waited. Teams carried a mix of British NLAWs, French AT-4s, and American javelins. They'd rehearsed this moment for weeks. When the first tank crested the slope, a javelin team locked on and fired. The missile rose high, then dropped directly onto the turret, penetrating the armor from above. The vehicle erupted in flame and its ammunition cooked off in seconds. Another tank tried to turn back but hit soft ground. Its treads dug deep into the mud. 2 FPV drones swooped in from the tree line, striking their engine block and turret seam. The explosions left nothing moving. Still, a few vehicles managed to push forward. Their commanders were either brave or unaware of how exposed they were. Ukrainian gunners switched to airburst rounds, detonating shells just above the ground to shower crews with shrapnel. By 4:05 a.m., the counterattack had lost all shape. Those still running engines were boxed in by wrecks, mines, and fires. Others had already been abandoned. A final HIMARS strike sealed the escape routes. 3 guided rockets hit the northern edge of the valley, blocking the road completely. Satellite imagery later confirmed that nothing was getting out. At 4:10 a.m., the battle was finally over. The surviving crews who crawled out of the wrecks were exhausted, wounded, and disoriented. Some raised their hands immediately. Others stayed hidden until Ukrainian infantry called out in Russian, promising safe surrender. Within minutes, the last resistance stopped. Ukrainian soldiers moved carefully through the wreckage. When clearing the area section by section, they found only burned-out hulls, melted tracks, and shattered weapons. By sunrise, the valley looked stripped of life. Wrecked tanks lay half buried in frost with steel warped by heat. Ukrainian engineers moved slowly through the field, tagging what could still explode and marking a path for recovery teams. Just after 6, command received confirmation. The operation was complete. 87 armored vehicles destroyed or disabled, dozens of prisoners in custody, and none of Ukraine's forward units lost. Images from the valley reached Kyiv in an hour. Analysts reviewed them and praised Ukraine's efficiency. Most of the work had been done by machines that had never been seen on the battlefield before. Intelligence officers from London and Paris called it the cleanest defensive action of the year. Off record, one NATO official said, "That was information moving faster than armor." That win carried weight beyond the numbers for Ukraine. It showed that coordination with partners could neutralize an enemy that once seemed untouchable. It also showed that discipline still mattered more than anger. In the valley, soldiers shared water with captured crewmen. No one celebrated. The faces in the early light looked tired, alert, and heart-touchingly human. By midday, the smoke had thinned, and the first recovery vehicles rolled in. What had started as an invasion ended as proof that planning and restraint could decide a battle before sunrise. Now that you've seen the outcome, can you tell us, was it technology or timing that decided this battle? Leave your thoughts in comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more such verified frontline analyses. Stay tuned, stay well.